I have a really special guest for you. I have Jay from FRINJ Coffee in California. Can you guys believe it? We grow coffee in California. Hey Jay, can you tell us about your? Okay, by the way, so what is your job title right now at the FRINJ?
Well, my job title is I'm a co-founder and CEO of FRINJ Coffee.
Okay, so
Uh,
you have so who is another co-founder? So you and someone else then, right?
yeah, actually, FRINJ is it's such a community that I have several co-founders. I have Lindsay Mesta, he's a Q grayer
Okay.
and some support. I have Andy Mullins, who's a farmer and business developer, and then I have Dr. Juan Medrano, who is a geneticist researcher of coffee. And so that's my original founding team, and many of them still work with us today.
Oh, by the way, so how you guys come up? So whose idea to grow coffee in California?
Uh,
Is that your idea or?
well, it was a collaborative effort. I've been farming for 35 years or
Okay.
so, doing exotic crops, and I started working about 25 years ago with the University of California Farm Extension Service,
Okay.
looking at new potential crops to help farmers to have value-added crops. And over 22 years ago, I got my first coffee plants to evaluate, and then I spent a good 10 to 15 years trying out coffee while the craft coffee movement progressed, and
Wow.
then it evolved into doing some genetics and some breeding, and now we support over 61 coffee farms in California. And so,
61 coffee farms.
yes, we've
Man,
planted
you know
over
what?
trees. It's a lot of trees.
By the way, I never had California coffee. I mean, actually, I never had a coffee from this country. This is really, really treat. Okay.
Well, I'll come back and we'll ship you a couple coffees to try, and we can revisit that experience
Wow.
with you. Quite an
Okay. Can
experience.
can you show us your barn for a second?
Yeah, so we're in Santa Barbara, California, which is the headquarters.
Okay.
Uh, our family farm's called Goodland Organics, and that's the headquarters for FRINJ Coffee. So we do a lot of things. We not only do coffee, we do a bunch of exotic fruits from Goodland Organics. But here is our lab, um, our full barn here. So
Wow.
it transforms itself into coffee roasting and sorting. We do our cuppings and tastings here too. So we do have an espresso machine
Yep.
and everything we need. We have a really cool old kettle collection
Okay.
that's
I
up
yep, I
into the
see
roof.
that at the top there. That's fantastic.
Excuse me, we got to go in the light
Yep.
here, and then we're going to walk over here, and we have our San Franciscan roasters. So you can see we
Wow.
got our 1 pound roaster, and then we have our 6 pound roaster,
Wow, 6 pound. Okay.
and then we go to the other part of the barns, and we're finishing up on our coffee, so we can go over. I got natural coffees here. They're finishing on drying. We have parchment. So this is about 15%. We're trying to get them down to 11%. And then we got dry mills and places where we have to do the green beans. And then we have a sorting room just on the other side of us. In fact, you can actually see a gentleman sorting out coffee like right there. So he's sorting out some natural coffee for us as we prepare for Monday and Tuesday's roasting and shipping.
Jay, so what kind of yield are we talking about? Obviously, it's not a mass production, correct?
No, we're not commodity farmers, so we
Is
are
that
uh, very specialty high end. Our goals are to do some of the best coffees in the world. We hope like this year we did about 1,000 pounds, and then we've been planting coffee with other farms aggressively for the last 4 or 5 years. And the coffee plant takes about 4 or 5 years to come into production. And so we hope to continue to scale up. We've been working really aggressively on acquiring the right equipment, lots of training personnel, lots of cupping. We do cupping several times a week, and then we have farm advisors that help our farmers to try to be a better grower, because it starts in the field. Coffee's a fruit, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of consumers don't understand. But
oh yeah.
and I'm a fruit grower at heart, so it makes perfect sense.
So by the way, so who carries your coffee? Is anybody in US? Any coffee roasters carries your green beans or process, or is everything's all in house?
Um, we go through stages. We sell coffees, micro lots to certain coffee
Hmm.
companies. We're just launched for 2022, so coffees that were harvested like 3 months ago are now available online at FRINJ Coffee.
Yep, I saw that one.
To retailers right now. In fact, I've been on the road for the last week, cupping with different retailers. Many of them you and your audience probably have heard before, but I'm not going to mention anything. But in the past, we've done Bird Rock, Blue Bottle,
Blue
Sun.
bottle, okay.
And so we just send micro lots and go through the system. The best way, we're farmers, and the best way is to buy directly online roasted
Sure,
coffee. Half of the value goes directly back to the farmer, and that's been my
gotcha.
core value is to help farmers out. And then we do regenerative ag and interplantings with avocados. So the best way is to go online, and we have new offerings. We have flights, so you can try Geisha flights or Bourbon flights from different regions. It might be Santa Barbara or San Diego, where we have all of our growers. So check our social media as we start launching with different coffee shops,
Okay.
opportunities for people to go try the coffee or buy directly from them.
Okay, so I mean, I saw you guys do a lot of geisha.
Yes, we like geishas.
I know. I mean, I love geisha as well. I mean, that's one of my favorite coffee there. So, so comes to comparison to other origins, right? So, you guys are kind of equivalent to what Ethiopia types, or what kind of? Obviously, the elevation matters.
I approach coffee not by the region.
Okay.
I coffee by the varietal, which is called cultivar. We
Okay.
breed coffee here, and I focus a lot on geisha breeding. And so our coffees have a lot of nuances from farm to farm in how we process. We just started launching some of our naturals online, and that's a new step. We've done a lot of wash over the years as we tried to work on our control. But our geishas, we cupped with Willem Boot and Boot Coffee 2 days ago with geishas from all over the world, and they all shared similar qualities. And I'm
Okay.
really still riding a high of how California has performed. We get our classic jasmine coffee flower
Yep.
floral, the black tea bergamot into a lemony finish. So on our wash, you get a really classic geisha, especially the Valley Heart that we're offering, another Santa Barbara farm. The naturals are a lot more of a fruity bomb, but they don't miss that floral element. I would recommend doing a brew of 17 to 1, so that last part of that brew can
Yep.
extract florals. So those are really important in terms of the geisha varieties.
So, by the way, so what is the? I mean, it seems like to me you guys are only grower in the U.S. I mean, you guys are it, or there's more.
Well, I mean, in the continental U.S. So my farm here at Goodland Organics was the original farm.
Okay.
But I have this drive to help other people and other farmers, and so I formed Fringe Coffee to help a network of farmers that were looking for coffee, looking for another crop besides lemon and avocados. And so we found a system that interplants with other fruit trees. So there's multiple crop systems that create almost what I call layered agriculture, and it's also coined as some regenerative approaches. And so I took the system here with a marvelous team of people from agronomists to coffee specialists, and we've built a system for farmers to follow so that we can all grow coffee together and rise together as a recognizable region. And it's a lot of fun because we're in wine country too. We're like right over the mountain, the San Ynez Valley,
Yep.
and
Coffee wine.
a lot
Yep.
of culinary tourism and people that really appreciate food. And there's so much to learn with coffee. And so we're a really unique opportunity to continue to share and educate. I think just like what you do and what I do is we need to show how complex and fascinating and how hard it is to grow coffee.
Oh man. Okay. So speaking of hard, I mean, I mean, it's not an easy process, isn't it?
Oh, it's not. I mean, like here's coffee. There's a real coffee branch there. So
Wow. Okay.
right, and so you can see first it doesn't ripen all at once. So we have to hand pick the coffee. Right, there's a coffee
Yeah.
bean. There's only two beans in this each coffee fruit. Sometimes there's one, which is the pea berry, and then you have to get the seed, and then you have the skin, which is has a lot of potential. That's the fruit. In California, it's super sweet. And then that right there, that has to go through fermentation for multiple days, like almost a week in some cases. Then has to go through drying for an exceptionally long time. If it's really quality, sometimes 10, 14 days of slow drying. Then it goes to get cured. Then it gets a parchment that has to be removed. And then after that, we have to sort the green bean so that the roaster can roast a size bean that's even. And then we cup them, and we actually track all this. So it's really complicated. I can send you. We have a good diagram we can send to you to post if you want.
Oh, so by the way, is that machine picked or is it all hand picked?
Oh, it's all handpicked here. The finest coffees in the world are handpicked. You know,
Oh,
it's too difficult. The machinery is not there, and as you see, you know, machines can't. Today's machines can't sort out picking red over green, and this fruit doesn't want to fall off. You know, it's not like other fruits that you use a machine like a blueberry just falls off naturally. You have to actually yank on it, and so
oh wow.
it's designed to be difficult. But that's what's the difference. If you harvest a ripe red fruit, man, that's where you get all the qualities. There's three times more flavors in the coffees and wine, but you have to get the fruit to build up all those sugars and esters and everything that can be exposed through the post-harvest process.
I mean, goodness. I mean, I'm kind of like thinking about it. I mean, is it really hard to compete with other market for comes to coffee? Because I mean, it's so much labor intense. Obviously, you have to follow the California law as well. Comes to labor law, man. I mean, yeah. I mean, I understand why you guys going for the specialty coffee instead of commodity aspects of it.
Yeah, I mean, as the reason we're going for larger farms and more farms because there's equipment out there to get to scale, right?
Yeah.
That's one component. But I was in Napa yesterday, and people are processing coffees or wine grapes, excuse me.
Yep.
They're out, good grapes and bad. They're caring for it. It's not as complicated as coffee, in my opinion, but they're getting 3 to 10 times more for the wine. And
Oh
so
yeah.
that process and go, wait, people are paying for a $16 glass of wine that did not take as much effort
Yep.
as the coffee. And I feel like for people who really want to explore like a Geisha or a Caturra or some of these
Yep.
blends, a $10 cup of coffee is $300 a pound extraction. It's not that far. So I think we just need to recalibrate a little bit of what we want, and especially those people that appreciate the complexity of a good cup of coffee.
You know what? Because I mean, people are willing to spend a lot of money for great coffee. So I mean, market is out there. Market is out there because I mean, a lot of geishas selling 100 gram for like $50. You know, $80. I mean, that's not uncommon. The world of specialty coffee. So, I mean, you guys are not that far off. Comes to coffee wise, the pricing wise.
Yeah, I think there will always be a space for the commodity coffees, but we really need to go deeper into the supply chain. This is a food that we enjoy every day, but the complexity of the supply chain is crazy. That's 20 to 25 people own it or touch it through the whole process, with the farmer being at the very end getting less than
Yep.
5%. We have to change that, and we have opportunities in some of the tools with the internet. um, with Fringe, we're just a drop in the bucket, but being able to go farmer to Fringe directly to you is where we can make a difference. And my intention in the next 3 or 5 years is to really start having locations where people can come and view. We do farm tours So people can come taste the coffee cherry, drink the coffee, put your hands through the drying racks and feel it and experience it, because there's so much to experience with coffee that we're missing in just drinking in a cup at the coffee shop.
The fact, I mean, you're absolutely right, because most people, we don't have a lot of experience, not the exposed to the growing aspects of it. Interact with the farmers, interact with the people like you, because mostly people go to coffee shop and get a bag of coffee and come home and make themselves coffee. But we are missing the first half of the process. And I'm glad you are joining us this morning. So at least a few of us can interact with you. You know, I mean, hopefully people is gonna watch this video and kind of like appreciate the hard work you guys are doing.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate that. I think one of the other components is that we don't see the production, but I think we call coffee an orphan crop in the science world. One of the things that being here in California, I've been working with UC Davis on looking at more production science, how nutrition, pruning. We're doing a breeding program, and I was super surprised when I started coffee how much all that was lacking globally. There's a few great organizations like World Coffee Research out there that are trying their best, but they've been under resourced for the amount of coffee that's produced around the world. And so we're not only looking at some of the plant science, but cultivation. And so our farmers are growing avocados and coffee and ingas and mixing the crops. And I do think around the world as we grow coffee, there's has to be local food systems has to be respected. Not a lot of most of the coffee gets shipped out of country, but offering cultivation systems that provide local foods as well as coffee. I think these are kind of the things we need to look at as we need to be more resilient as farmers to climate and scarcity of food. And so there's some other components. If people come and see Fringe and visit some of the farms, they can get the highlights of those components of the new evolving food production system.
And you guys only harvest once a year then, or?
Well, we have one season, but we harvest multiple times.
Okay.
Like I said, you see multiple
Yep.
maturity rates, and we're basically done with harvest. We harvest during the summer. Ideally, like May to September, October. It kind of depends on what type of winters we have, if they're cold or dry. Um, so we try to harvest every 2 to 3 weeks the farm and only get the deepest red fruits that have a sugar content in wine. We call it bricks that are in the 20s because there's actually this whole fermentation process. We have a wash, which is wet fermentation, where you
Yep.
remove the skin and you let it ferment the mucilage and the carbohydrates there. But even the natural process where you leave the skin on, that's a dry fermentation. There's still microbial mechanisms taking place in the dried natural process that are really important. And having a good baseline of sweet sugars are important. And so when we harvest here in California, we irrigate everything, but we also it's so dry, we don't have rain, so we can get some really high sugar contents in our fruit.
And so you guys also experiment with the other type of process, like fermentation for like 20 hours, 30 hours, even 90 hours, or?
Yeah, I mean that's why I call it fringe. We're always kind of on the edge, so I
Right.
do
There you go.
some experimentations, mainly on my own products on from Goodland. Our farmers, we try to really work on control. Um, that's been really inconsistencies really been our team's effort. We're now with the introduction of naturals. We're really exploring into the naturals, so we're carefully doing a science approach, but trying to respect the hard work of the farmer, and then also looking at the different markets. That we can take a geisha in many different directions. I don't. I want to respect the classic geisha, but I've had some geishas this week that didn't taste like geisha because they did too much. Like they went too far with fermentation in some ways. So, kind of an interesting world we're in the coffee with this post harvest. Um, when I cup, I'm always looking to try and identify varietal or
Yep.
cultivars and get that as the core foundation. and then hopefully all that fermentation components can accentuate and highlight or add to the natural esters and the natural flavors of that variety. So that's kind of my core effort right now.
So about this, how much land you guys have? How much acres are we talking about? Kind of like coffee farming in U.S.
Well, we do a lot of interplantings,
Okay.
and we we've planted over 100,000 trees on 61 farms.
Wow, 100,000.
Right. Um, and they're varying. There's farms that are flat, and there's farms on hillsides. A lot of hillsides because we're trying to get off the valley floor where it gets cold. They're all within the influence of the ocean.
Yep.
Uh, we average between 600 to 1,200 trees per acre. And so we're about 100 acres if you just do some really simple
Yeah.
math on that. And so we have some smaller farmers and we have some larger professional farmers. And so it's been a great experience because we can get everybody try to adapt the system. No farm's exactly the same. It's not like the San Joaquin Valley where it's all flat and the same. Every farm has its complexity, and that can be reflected on the cup of coffee. That's why the flights are kind of fun to try Geisha from what they're the same genetically. They're similar because we try to keep the genetics the same, but each farm has a different water system, different soil type, and so there's always like, well, let's see how this coffee tastes. But in general, Geisha will taste Geisha. Caturra will have some Caturra, and then we have the Lorena, which is the half caffeine, which is really our special coffee.
Did you say half caffeine?
Well, it's low caffeine. Yeah, it's like less caffeine as well. So Lorena Lawa is the name of it, and so we that's one of the super special coffees. They're about 50 to 60% normal, and they grow like a Christmas tree, and the leaf structure is more like a ficus. So it's a really fascinating, more difficult tree to grow, but because of the low caffeine, it's a very sweet coffee. It doesn't caffeine doesn't bring the bitterness through. We don't have a lot of bitterness, but it just makes it a different extraction.
You know what? The people needs to know this about coffee in U.S. Goodness, I mean, what a wonderful story and what wonderful cause you are doing. You are taking care of the farmers there. You know.
Yes, it's farmer first.
Yeah.
I've always been a farmer. My kids are farmers, and I think that it needs to be farmer first. And then because I think that's what pushes the new experiences for coffee.
I mean, because ever since the pandemic, everybody getting into the specialty coffee now. Okay. I mean, everybody's are they don't mind spending 50 to $100 for coffee, per pound. So man,
Yeah, I think it's great. Again, I was in Napa, and I think it's great if people break open a bottle of wine and pour it. But to do coffee, it's like look at all the different brew
I know.
styles. Like, where do we want to do this coffee? And so I enjoy your YouTube channels because you have these different approaches where people can take the same coffee and brew it different ways and customize to their palate. It's a lot of fun to be part of the coffee industry. And
You know what? Because I mean, coffee hobbyist like myself, because I'm always looking for that perfect coffee. Okay,
all right,
I do. Perfect brewing system, perfect brewer, and I'm gonna match that with the coffee. I mean, goodness, so much. There's so much great coffees out there, but again, the California coffee. So let me ask you: California is the only state the coffee farmers right now. Is there any other states makes
oh yeah,
coffee?
I mean Hawaii, right? We
Yeah,
forget
yeah,
about our
yeah.
Hawaii friends over there that try to they do they. I mean, I wouldn't be here without them. I mean, the Kona
Yep,
coffee is
that's right.
in terms of labor. They've done a good job of harvesting the tourism component and making it really part of their culture. And so my hat's off to all the Hawaiian growers. I probably
Yep.
wouldn't be without them. And so, but in terms of really, until we start breeding more resilient varieties, which is part of our goal. We're kind of limited to the Southern California coastal region, just like avocados, where the frost is kind of the baseline.
Okay.
Once weather gets below 30 degrees and comes in, it makes it more difficult to grow coffee.
Okay, so I mean, so you guys have an actual storefront or some kind of people can visit you, try your coffee. I mean, what do you guys set up like?
So our core base of selling coffee is the website,
That's right. Yep. Website.
coffee.com.
Yep.
We partner with varying roasters through certain introductions and offerings. And so, because we're pretty active the last 3 or 4 weeks, because we just got done with harvest this summer of our 2022 crop. And so, we will be partnering and offering coffees here in the fall, going to the winter as we develop those relationships and customize our coffees. So so that's the second component. Um, in the long run, you know, well, actually, going into spring and summer, we offer tours, so people can come and pay, and they can sip on the coffee, look at the operation, and walk through the coffee farm and taste coffee cherries. And we have a lot of exotic fruits on the farm, so we do that. And then ultimately, I'd like to have some tasting rooms on farm. So that's kind of my. Um, I'm going through it. It's a big process here, establishing an industry that never existed before,
I know.
helping farmers get to a certain stage and proving that we can do some of the best coffees in the world.
I mean, that is very exciting. So right outside of your barn is your farm.
Yes,
Can you show us quick view of that? I mean, I love to see it.
I can
Yeah.
go a little. I can go about so far.
Okay.
Have a rural network, but we could go for a little tour if you like.
Yeah, please. Yeah, I love to see it. Yeah.
So some of the things that we did talk about, and I think one of the things that I think is important for us to see is here's a good example of the process of coffee. And you can see it's coffee cherries have two beans. I just showed you that, but it takes 3 to 5 years to develop the plant, and then there goes through pulping and coffee cherries that will remove the skin. Then we have a fermentation time. Then we have these drying racks, which I show you here. Then there's this reposo resting period, and then you pull that out 2 or 3 months, and then you have to hull it because there's a shell, sort it, roasting. I mean, it's a complicated process, right?
Okay. So Jay, so when you harvest, okay, you take the fruit out, harvest to green beans. How long usually take? How many months?
I mean, you're really 4 months if you're going fast. I
Four
think
months.
things people don't understand. I mean, coffees on average that we're getting our coffee shops are probably 8 months to a year, because they some of the high end especially can move faster with special exporters and internet and FedExing. But our traditional coffees are going on like cargo container ships that take 30 to 60 days, go
Wow.
storage. And so that's one of the really fascinating components is that we have this underlying food system that's really slow to us. And at that point, for you and I that like quality coffee, that's one of those things that it degrades because the temperature changes.
Yep.
Time itself. We try to do things to displace oxygen for storage. So I have cold storage for our product because when we have a 90-point coffee, I don't want to put it in the sun. I don't want heat. I don't want oxygen. We want to store it so that the coffee consumer has the best experience.
Okay. Okay. So speaking of points, you guys score through the SCA as well.
Yeah, we use SCA standards.
Okay.
We have many cuppers on staff. I have external cuppers too.
Okay.
So it depends what we want. If we're just doing a production, we keep it in house. But if we have very special coffees, we rely on other people.
Wow. That's fantastic, Jay.
Yeah, this is really fascinating. This is the coffee and parchment. So know what? So when we start drying coffee, it's actually a shell, like a peanut shell, and
Uh
then
huh.
we have to move this shell to get to the green bean, and the green bean's on the side. So we have these pieces of equipment that remove them, and that's something like this is the piece of equipment. And then you got this is the byproduct of coffee processing is a parchment. Uh, no one ever really sees that because they usually process in origin because they
Yep.
don't want to ship that across the ocean, right? So there's that. The other component, which is really interesting, it's hard to see with the light, but this is the natural process. So when you leave that coffee fruit on, you let it dry for a few weeks with it on, and you inside you got the fruit, the seeds of the fruit, and it's kind of like a coffee raisin. And then you gotta remove it, but it comes with that the fruit forward coffees that you've seen. Ergachev from Ethiopia has probably started the best known region for that, and so we have both two different geishas here and two different processes on the drying racks.
Okay, oh, by the way, so let's recap. How many variety you guys are farm produce at the moment?
Right now, our farm, I mean, we have well over a dozen cultivars, but we're
Wow,
breeding our coffees. So we have a lot of hybrids that we are testing out. We have geisha hybrids. We have H1, H3, H16, 17, 18,
man.
19. So those are from Syriad and Ecom, and World Coffee Research has a lot of those varieties too. So I'm going to do something, get a little bit more stable here. So we have a lot of different varieties, and here's what. Speaking of plants, so this is a coffee plant here. So this is what our farmers are planting.
No,
This type of plant. We actually just started selling them online because there's a whole bunch of home growers that are enjoying it. So there's a coffee care component here, and so this is a coffee plant that when you transplant it, and you can get into a larger plant within a year. This is what a year of growth would look like. And you see it's a bigger pot. And so if any of your viewers want to try at home, grow their own coffee, and then maybe in 3 or 4 years we'll have a homegrown coffee contest or something.
oh, by the way, so okay. So what kind of weather requires to get what is the optimal weather like, the climate?
For coffee, the most essential component is making sure that you don't get frost or strong winds.
Okay.
The second component is, we talk a lot about shade grown.
Yeah.
That's a way to slow down the maturation process, which ultimately affects the quality. Usually, when the coffee cherry takes longer to go from flower to harvest, you have a more complex cup of coffee. That's why you go shade grown or mountain grown.
Yeah.
So we like to grow in soils that are rather rich. We want soil water and soil pH to be at like 6.5. So that's acidity is super important. In California, we're trying to lower the pH, and a lot of the tropical volcanic regions are trying to raise the pH. So from a farmer perspective, they like water, but not too much. And that's one of the things that we found out in California. How much water does a coffee tree need a day? And that's been one of the really fascinating challenges for the last 15 years. Is I talked to agronomists around the world. How much do they need a day? Everybody can say how much they need in a year, but what do they need? Because you can easily overwater a coffee plant, and that's one of our latest findings. So,
Oh
uh,
wow.
so if you have it in your house, the see how bright you get light coming
Yeah.
through. They grow really well. If you want to have more production, you probably would go into more full sun, and then you get more production with more sun. But they make a beautiful house plant. Just don't forget to give it food. It's like a teenage kid; it constantly wants to eat and drink. So
Oh man, you know what, guys? I learned so much from you guys right now. I mean that this is awesome. This is fantastic.
yeah, there's a lot to learn with coffee, and so you're on the side of doing the extraction process, and there's so many ways to do that, and I'm on the side of trying to help farmers and to grow so that you can try different coffees and we can get you closer to your perfect cup of coffee.
Man, okay, so why don't you give us quick outside view? It'd be
You
great.
want to go outside? Okay, we
I
go
love
for
that.
a walk out here.
Yeah.
So it's going to get bright.
It's all right. It's okay. There we go.
So here's our barn. So we have a orchard over here, a demonstration orchard. We're going to go under these trees here.
Wow.
So we're coming into the orchard here, and we have coffee green beans.
Wow. That is fantastic.
So these are some of our coffees. We have Bourbons over here. So these are our Bourbons. We have actually, this is a Geisha here. This is a Bourbon. These are These are Caturas. This is all the green bean is for next season. We have a 10 to 12 month growing season,
Wow.
so they're quite long. Most of the tropical world has about I don't know 6 to 7 months, especially if
Yeah.
to the low end. Talking to Willem Boot and some of his coffee growers up in Boquete, Panama, they can go 10 or 12 months. They're a lot more similar to what we have. Here's the Lorena, that half caffeine one.
Yeah.
Look at it's super narrow leaves. They call it pointed Bourbon because it's so pointed, and the seed itself is really pointed, and it's a difficult one to roast. But I got good roasters to help out, but it's not the easiest to roast. So
Man.
so here it is. Yep, you can see more. This is next year's coffee.
Man, that is spectacular, Jay.
Yeah, and then I can't go too far, but in behind us, this right here is the
Yep.
dry. So this is where we dry our coffee. So we have environmental control. So our goal is to dry coffee, slow and easy. Turn it a lot, as many times as we can, so we got even drying, and that's super important. And then right behind me is again, this is our wet mill, and this is our fermentation container. So we do controlled atmosphere environment fermentations. Um, fermenting outside, there's way too many variables,
Yep.
and so by fermenting inside with a controlled atmosphere, we can control what is happening with the yeast and bacteria.
So okay, so how's the coffee market in US for you guys? I mean, is that profitable venture, or are you doing more for the farmers and whatnot?
Um, we started small scale.
Yep.
We proved the market. We proved that individual coffee plants can perform under certain conditions. Then we scale up a little bigger, and then and so I think, like any business, there's a really great opportunity if done right by both the farmers and how we offer you coffees. If I took my coffees and I dried them in a tumbler, skipped fermentation, and did a dark roast, I would not have any opportunities. But because we're taking the care to craft it, to making some of the best coffees in the world, I think it can be a very profitable opportunity
Uh,
for the farmers and creating an industry in California. I mean, avocados came in 1890 to California, but it really wasn't until like the 70s or 80s it became popular. It takes some time to get an industry, the infrastructure, and then, of course, the market around there. So I believe we can offer lots of opportunities for our farmers and also some amazing um, flavors and new experiences for the consumer.
So okay, again, so let's recap it. What best way to support your farmers? Go to the French website directly, correct?
Yeah, going to Fringe directly. We're always rotating offerings because as we process, we're like, okay, we put this coffee. So every 3 or 4 weeks, we're usually putting some the new
Yep.
farm and see the different farms in the different regions. So that's the very best way because it's as direct as possible. I,
Exactly.
and as we have retailers, special cafes and coffee shops um, offer our coffees for cupping, and we sit down with them, making sure they're extracting it the right way, the right cup, so that whoever's trying our coffees can have a great experience. We'll post that on Instagram and Facebook and say it in our blog. So um, I hope that everybody can go and reach out and try these and experience them, and hopefully share it with friends. I'm always a big fans of people drinking
Yeah.
coffee together. I think that's super important in building communities.
Make sure people watching right now, make sure follow their Instagram page and Facebook and also their website as well. So I'm gonna put the link down below when I'm done with it. Hey Jay, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I know you're extremely busy. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody out there supporting California coffee and French.
guys. Okay, make sure people are watching. Make sure go buy some California coffee. All right, Jay. Thank you. Okay.
Bye bye.
So, so that's the Jay from God FRINJ Coffee, California, folks. Make sure if you guys have some extra money, make sure buy that coffee for your friends and family for the holiday season. Okay, it's coming up right now. All right, folks. See you guys next time.